I'm Steven Feinberg, and you're not.
All right, Mr. Steven Feinberg.
That is me.
It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. You just mentioned that we've actually had an encounter prior to this.
We did. I saw you in South County. You were on the set of Anders Manor. You were the gentleman who owned the manor, welcoming the guests.
Right. I was also the human manifestation of the demon himself.
Yes.
I was the bad guy.
And that was directed by John Schermerhorn for Tom DeNucci and the cousins who were the writers, and Mike Messier and Woodhaven.
Yeah, that was a great...
It was a lot of fun, right? It was a lot of fun. What I love seeing is people like John Schermerhorn. Perfect example.
Right.
First time I met him, he was a production assistant on Underdog in 2005. It was his first opportunity to work on a film. As the years went on, he got involved doing different positions, moving his way up to the point where he was a director of a horror film called Anders Manor. I see that trajectory happening every day. That's what's wonderful.
It really is. So one of the questions, Wayne actually was the one who facilitated this encounter.
Hi, Wayne.
Oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Feinberg.
Nice to meet you, my friend. Call me Steven.
He promoted this idea for this podcast. One of the things I was thinking about on my way up here was Vancouver.
Okay.
I lived in San Francisco for many years.
Yep.
And it was a hotbed of film production, and still is to a certain extent. But Vancouver offered a very similar product to film production companies, and it's become kind of a mecca for film production now.
If you're talking, let's go back for a second. When you're talking about San Francisco, are you talking about the 1970s?
Oh, I'm talking about the 1990s.
Okay. All right, so at that time you had Francis Coppola was
Sure.
living up there. George Lucas was living
Right.
up there. They had the Zoetrope Studios were up there. Lucasfilm was up there. So they weren't using any kind of incentives at all. They were just, that's where they wanted to be outside of the studio system.
Sure.
And then
Like the Outlaws from Nashville.
right.
Yeah.
And then what you had in the 90s was runaway production. The runaway production was incentives from Canada, and no one in the United States was really willing to compete. They thought productions will stay in California, it won't be an issue. But as a guild member myself, a Writers Guild member, we would start seeing these productions. People who were working on crew were seeing more and more productions going to Canada.
Right.
I ended up doing a film in Australia called Fortress that had an incentive package. So there were incentives that were driving productions out of the United States. Then when I took this job in 2004, knowing my experiences, knowing that there was a global challenge to the United States for film production, I suggested that we start an incentive package here in Rhode Island. We were the first of the New England states and one of the first 4 in the entire country to start an incentive package to bring films and TV productions here. And the very first production was Brotherhood for Showtime, a series that went on for 3 seasons, and we had never had a series film entirely in our state prior.
I remember that.
Providence was 2 or 3 days of filming, B-roll, but the series itself was filmed in Los Angeles. So our local talent, whether it's the crew base or our actors, would say to me when I arrived in 2004, you know, the TV show Providence was great for tourism, but none of us are working, making a living. And my goal was, if anything is Rhode Island centric, I want it to be filmed in Rhode Island. If we could double as another location or a fictional place like in Underdog, we were the capital city. You know, I wanted Rhode Island to have that share of those opportunities. So the key is keep it in Rhode Island. Brotherhood originally was scheduled to be like the TV show Providence. They were going to come for 3 days. And then they had already set up their offices in Toronto with incentives. They had all set up, and they were ready to go. And I said to the director, Philip Noyce, who did Clear and Present Danger, Patriot Games, Dead Calm, I said to him, Philip, you're now going to make your story take place in Rhode Island. Originally it was Boston, because I had shown him many people, and he said yes. Australia, he said, yes, Steve, we're going to do it. It's going to be Rhode Island. I said, okay, but you're going to do 3 days in Rhode Island, and the rest will be in Toronto. That's what you're saying? That's right, Steve. And I said, you won't be telling the truth. Rhode Islanders have a certain way about them, a certain accent, a certain pulse. There's something special about Rhode Island.
So if you show kids skateboarding in Iceland, somebody's going to notice.
Right, mate. Right. So Philip stared at me, and I said to him, creatively, can I have your support to do it in Rhode Island? If I can find a way to fiscally create an argument with the head of Showtime. And he said, yes. And that's how it came about.
So with whom do you interface as far as the governmental apparatus of Rhode Island? To get the green lights and to get the tax breaks and
Well, at that point, I talked to the governor, speaker, Senate president, and at that time, it was the Economic Development Corporation, a gentleman by the name of Mike McMahon. So I talked to all of them, said, this is what I propose. Philip Noyce is directing this pilot, and they were going to spend $4.5 million. By going up to Toronto, they were saving $500,000 on this just one episode, this pilot. And I said, well, if we can maybe
find a way,
a legislative grant perhaps, and not give a full $500,000, but maybe $300,000, that's an argument.
Right.
And the upside is worth it creatively, with the intent that if they decide to pick up the show for a season or two,
after this introductory period, we move into a relationship.
And to film here. It was very tense, probably the most intense week of my life, because they had already had offices set up, and it was yes, no, yes, no, yes. Finally, we get the full yes, contract signed, and they stayed. No one believed we would even have one season. It went on for 3 seasons, and at the very end, the Providence Journal wrote, our show got whacked. So what was really neat is that the state of Rhode Island embraced the program. And it won a Peabody Award. It also set a trajectory for creating film and TV industry in Rhode Island, and also let people who were born here or who love Rhode Island know that they could move back from Los Angeles or Toronto, New York, etc.
So why didn't this ignite into a thing where Rhode Island become, right now Rhode Island is turf and blueberries and fishing and beaches. Those are the things that Rhode Island's famous for. Why isn't it a hub?
It is a hub. It's just, we were all over the Washington Post, USA Today, Variety. Right after that, it was Underdog, a $40 million film made entirely in Rhode Island.
There's no need to fear.
And that's what I would say. They would ask about Brotherhood, because Brotherhood is a rather dark program.
Right.
And I said, we're doing all kinds of fabric of fiction. And I said, never fear, Underdog is here.
That was a delightful little movie. It really was.
We took over the State House, and everyone was excited. And it was a $40 million film, or $40 million spent on the ground in Rhode Island. The special effects were an additional $15 million later. But they spent $40 million dropping that money into our state.
What's the economic impact of a feature film, Cradle to Grave, here in Rhode Island?
So Dr. Ed Mazie, who was the head of the business school at the University of Rhode Island, did a study. And he said for every $1 we give in a tax credit, we get $8 of economic activity. That's pretty profound. And you'll have your naysayers say, oh, that can't be true. Okay, so let's say, it's $4 for every $1 we give in it? It's $3?
Sure. As long as it's turning a profit, what's to worry?
Yeah, because we have more people now. We have film camps. I see kids going to the film camps. We have film labs for high schools. We have all kinds of programs. Now, all the colleges and universities have film and media programs. When I arrived in 2004, one of the universities did. Now they all do. So we then provide internships on these projects. Then those internships turn into regular jobs. And I'm seeing these people climb the ladder, and it's amazing. One of the guys, when I started, was a location manager on Brotherhood. And what is he doing now? He is now the vice president of physical production at Universal Studios.
No kidding.
He's from Rhode Island. I see people that start out as production assistant going on to producing, to directing. The Rhode Island International Film Festival is Academy Award-winning, Academy sanctioned. Last year's film, Silent Child, won the Academy Award, Best Short Film. Where did it premiere? Here in Rhode Island. So we have so many things that are going. We are a hotbed. And as a matter of fact, Movie Maker magazine, the independent magazine, just said Rhode Island is the 9th best place in the entire North America, including Canada, to live and work as a filmmaker.
That
I'll
is
give
so
that to you. I'll give you.
encouraging to hear that.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know that.
You're like a proud father of a film industry.
No one loves Rhode Island more than me. I love our state. I lived away from our state for 22 years.
Where were you?
I was in Los Angeles.
Ah, yes.
Then I had a
We all
very-
have to do our time in Southern California.
and we had a great career there. But I had an opportunity. I started out with nothing. There was no budget, no assistance, no website. So I started from scratch. But I love our state so much. I said, well, in 6 months, I'll know if people understand what I'm talking about, what we can do. And frankly, there's been challenges. But overall, I'm so happy to see what we're doing
And
here.
the challenges are the nature of the beast. It's very much like the restaurant business. With every project, it's just a matter of putting out fires all day, every day. Here's another problem I have to solve.
Right. And also, if you have a dream, unfortunately, there are people that want to blow out your candles because they think that's going to make their candles brighter. Some people, that's how they live, is by being dream killers. I'm a dream
Supporter.
maker and starter, and I see other people living their dreams as a result of the work we've done, and that makes me feel very satisfied.
I imagine.
Trust is the key. Trust of our state. Trust of the film office. Trust of, sometimes it's confidentiality, like, for example, not making sure the script doesn't get out.
Right.
Because that is a tangible property that is confidential, that is trade secrets, if you will.
Sure.
Because that's what they're going to sell down the road. That's their expectation. So it's all about trust. And fortunately, over 15 years now, I've got a lot of trust. And I think our state is respected and loved. And, you know, there might be a particular project. I'll give you an example that I was talking to an executive at one of the studios that we had the potential of getting here in Rhode Island. And when I talked to the executive, who's become a very good friend, said, Steve, you don't want the project in Rhode Island. I said, why is that? And they explained to me what the potential problems were with this particular production.
Were they legitimate?
Well, here's the beauty. This is what I'm going to share with
Right.
you. Some of it was content, and some of it were the people that were working on the production. I said, you know, and now this person who was very high up and was looking out not just for my interest, but the state of Rhode Island's interest. Sure enough, fast forward 6 months later, there are major issues that were foreshadowed. And I said, thank the Lord for my friendship with this particular executive who gave me a little bit of a warning.
Heads
saying
up.
I had to then later on thank that person for their instinct.
Sure. But you never forget those moments where somebody tells you something and you don't really even take it all that seriously. You just kind of park it in the back of your head, and then, oh, lo and behold.
I know I chat, but I also do listen. And listening is very important.
Larry King once said that the key to his success was not him talking, but listening.
I have a show on PBS called Double Feature where I interview folks. And obviously we're reversed right now. But I will ask a question and just let that
Right.
guest talk. I had Doug Trumbull, the special effects guy from 2001, Blade Runner, Close Encounters. I had the production designer of Jaws and Close Encounters. I had Karen Allen from Razor Lost. So you
Special effects for 2001.
yes, Douglas Trumbull.
When you consider that movie was made, what, 1967?
I think it was
67, 68?
Yeah,
something like that. To this day, it's still a miraculous thing to look at.
It is the
Standard.
standard.
Yes.
And everything that, Star Wars jumped off of that, and
Gravity,
everything. It's still the movie.
just remarkable.
Stands the test of time.
It really does. That was something, and I don't want to go too far off on this tangent, but speaking of Kubrick, one of the great little treasures that I've come across over the years, when he was shooting the thing up in the snow there.
Shining.
The Shining. His daughter and a grip basically developed the prototype for the Steadicam.
Yes.
And she did a documentary of the film in real time. You can watch it with her narration or with no narration. And frankly, I found both of them better than the actual feature film.
Well, you remember one of the great moments is when he was on his big wheel,
Yeah.
Big
the little
wheel.
boy in the big wheel.
And that was a shopping cart with bungee cords.
And that, and the same, and then you're talking about the Steadicam. I believe that was during the maze sequence, and it was kind of not nice. They really tortured Shelley Duvall in real life.
Damaged her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
He was
never quite
mean
made
to
it
her.
back.
He was mean to her as a director to get the performance out of her that he wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but she was getting paranoid. And that's how he treated her.
And conversely, and then we can get off of this little digression.
I love just talking movies.
Oh, me too. So Kubrick's daughter is in Jack Nicholson's dressing room. Then she follows him into the bathroom, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but she was like 12 years old when she's doing this. Now he's brushing his teeth, and she asks, "Why are you brushing your teeth?" He said, "Because it's impolite to go on set with your breath all lamb chops." So what's on the horizon, film-wise?
Well,
in Rhode Island?
We just finished. I just literally put it up on Facebook. The little trailer for Nosferatu, the new AMC series that we did, starring Zachary Quinto. That's going to be premiering, I believe, in June. So we just wrapped 10 episodes of that for AMC.
Is this in contemporary times, or is it medieval? Or?
Well, no, it's not medieval. Zachary Quinto plays a vampire, a ghoul, who ages, and part of the show is some time jumps. The main character is a female who is on a motorcycle, and she goes through time and space via a old wooden bridge. And it's based on a book by Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King. And it's a best-selling book, Nosferatu. They also turned it, I believe, into a graphic novel. And
well, that was early cinema. That was one of the first real blockbuster movies.
The original Nosferatu was in 1922.
Right.
The character was Max Schreck. It was directed by a German named F.W. Murnau. It's a silent picture. That was done because Bram Stoker had written Dracula. Very popular. But F.W. Murnau and his company didn't want to pay for the rights of Dracula.
Right.
So they came up with a guy named Count Orlok, which is who Max Schreck plays, and he's very monstrous. Then Bela Lugosi had done the play, and then he did Dracula for Todd Browning at Universal, et cetera, and then we can keep going. But this is Nosferatu, and it's NOS, the number 4, the letter A, the number 2, and it's on his license plate of the of the Wraith that he's driving. He's driving a silver Wraith, and Zachary Quinto ages throughout this program. It's very creepy.
What is it with you film guys and horror movies? It seems like, I guess it's
Drama.
Well, it's drama, but it's also approachable because there's really no limits to it. You do whatever you want.
Creative,
with it.
And this show is highly creative. The sets were unbelievable, and the whole show's filmed entirely in Rhode Island. It's all here, all filmed here in Rhode Island.
So, to that point, in anticipation of our encounter today, I looked up Title 44 pertaining to film production in the state of Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. The preamble to it is this very persuasive description of Rhode Island: Central Falls, Watch Hill, Foster and Gloucester,
yep.
Little Compton. It's a
diverse locations,
abundant,
diverse locations in close proximity.
Yes.
I coined the phrase "smallest state, greatest backlot," and
I love that.
Right, smallest state. That was like I woke up at 2 a.m. one morning and I wrote that down. Not biggest. Biggest means only one thing. Greatest has size and quality.
Magnitude.
So we're 48 miles long, 40 miles wide, but we can be. And this is a strength of Rhode Island, unlike any other place in the United States, or maybe in the world. We can go from a cityscape to a seashore in 15 to 20 minutes, or into a rural place, whether it be Goddard Park or a fishing village, all in minutes. Time is money when you're making a film or a TV series. You're not getting that same bang for the buck in California. You're not getting it in Oklahoma or anywhere else. We are unique. Our rush hour traffic essentially lasts 10 minutes. And if you live in Los Angeles, rush hour traffic
24/7
lasts hours. If you're in New York City, rush hour traffic lasts hours. Not here.
So what's next on the horizon? What's the next big thing?
Well, you asked about Tom DiNucci. He's got Vault coming out this summer that he directed. He's got another production he's working on. We have another TV series, which we will be hopefully announcing within the next few weeks.
Good.
And as I said, Nosferatu is going to be coming out in June. Oh, and we have The Bachelorette filming in Newport at the end of March.
Oh, that's nice. That's a nifty little trick. Why not?
There's a huge fan base for that show. And this upcoming season of The Bachelorette, the only place that they are filming in the United States is Rhode Island. The rest is being filmed in Europe. So I'm very proud of that for our state.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You have a writing background. In a previous podcast, you mentioned that you've read thousands of scripts. Do you find that by reading the scripts that's a great way to get inside the story and then find these locations over here that match up here and these sources that can be a part of the building? And I mean, it must be an asset.
I'm a filmmaker. I've been making movies since I was 8. I made little movies. We shot at the airport doing a James Bond movie when I was 10. I made a living as a screenwriter selling my spec scripts, and sometimes I got hired and wrote scripts for the studios. And I read a lot of scripts and found different styles of writing that I really loved. One of my favorite scripts of all time, the script for Alien. Sparse, beautifully written, and one of the fastest reads. When you're selling a script, imagine a reader going home with 10 screenplays for the weekend. Sunday night around 6 o'clock, I gotta read these 10 scripts. I've got this stacked near my bed, and I'm going to start reading them. The first 10 pages are everything. And this is how hard it is. This is how competitive it is. Like, let's say the first script they read and go, they go to the next one. Then they get to the fourth script, and it's your script. Your first 10 pages, it's sparse. It grabs them, and that's the one that Monday morning comes along, and you go, I read this script. It grabbed me. I couldn't put it down. That's this script. And I look at a script like Alien, and I say, this is one of the best scripts I've read. It's very sparse. You might say hallway, cavernous, a thrum.
There is a scene in the screenplay for Gone with the Wind. 2 words. Atlanta Burns.
Right.
It's like 25 minutes out of the movie.
Right.
That's it.
Another guy who wrote a really fun style of screenwriting was William Goldman. If you read like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, totally different style. It's a very long script. But to your question, for example, when I got Underdog, and no one knows that I have this project. No one knows I'm trying to bring it to Rhode Island, and we're competing against many other places. I then look, and I think I can handle all this stuff, most of it in Providence, and I go down on a Sunday morning, and I take 300 photos of different locations that are appropriate. And then, guess what? 90% of the places that were used were from my original photos. If I can get, for Nosferatu as an example, took a ton of pictures over a good month, and if I can get some anchor locations that I think are appropriate for you, and some other things you might think about, just on what I believe the show could be, and they say, these look great, we want to come to Rhode Island. So then I have to plan, I had like 25 people, a tour from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m., 2 days straight of locations that I think are going to be appropriate for them across the entire state of Rhode Island. I ran this tour. So the first day, the producer said this was the best location scout they had in their entire career, and I didn't need to really worry too much about day 2 because I had already sold them to come here on day 1.
Sure. Wowed them.
The crew base here, the talent, now the experience. Because on Brotherhood, the first day they didn't have experience. So then they got the experience of season 1. Right. Which was draining. Then they got experience season 2, season 3, Underdog. So Massachusetts got in on the act. So now they're getting additional experience. You've got all of these folks that are now veterans.
Right. Yeah.
They're veterans. And some of those are learning on their independent films like
The Manor.
Right. Manor.
That was so interesting to watch how it's done. That film came out gorgeous. It was a beautiful
and
thing
there's some
to
nice
look at.
drone shots in there too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the other thing is, I was talking to a director who did 102 Dalmatians with Glenn Close, and he also did Enchanted. But he was talking about early in the starting of his career, working with Glenn Close, and there was a particular scene he was stuck on. He didn't know how to get out of it, and he's starting to really sweat. And Glenn Close said, "Well, you know, what if we just kind of remove this table?" And what he learned is it's a collaborative medium.
Right.
And it didn't have to all fall on his shoulders. And when you get people who have experience and they're working with you and they're solving problems, as you were talking about problems, and that is the beauty of making movies. And you have people that can help you.
Here's a way of looking at it.
Farrelly Brothers, Dumb and Dumber. First movie, and they filmed here. Right? Mm-hmm. They actually had to break it to the crew that they needed a lot of help. And remember that? Yeah,
and look at Peter now, just winning the Academy Award, several Academy Awards, and even he said, "I want to thank the entire state of Rhode Island." Well, you could have gotten more gleeful than me.
No kidding. I saw you on the news that night. You were one of the
Yes.
Oscar parties or something like that.
Yes.
But I thought that must have been one of the most gratifying things that's ever happened to you.
Unbelievable,
Yeah.
because
Best Picture director comes out and says, "Thank you, Rhode Island."
first I want many people to thank, and first I want to thank the entire state of Rhode Island.
I took it personally.
Yeah, and you know what? I heard some people say, I heard in my ear many people saying you're welcome.
Right.
But
right.
honestly, he didn't have to do that. But it was so. I use the word. He's such a mensch, which is a good person,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just really nice. And
And
we're proud of him. We're so proud of.
Sure,
And it's a
'cause
great movie. Have you
he's
seen-
established.
Have you
He's-
seen
he's-
Green Book? Have you seen Green Book?
I haven't seen
I haven't seen it yet. I'm going
Please
to.
go see it.
Oh, I definitely
It's a
will.
wonderful film. Great characters, everything.
We first met. Well, actually, I didn't meet you, but I spoke to you on the phone a few times.
Yeah.
We were commissioned to do a series pilot called The Wreck from New York City.
Yeah.
And we were engaged in conversations there, but then we received a call, me and Caswell, received a call that,
Caswell
that they were
Cook.
looking for a walk on the beach for a movie called Dan in Real Life.
Yes.
All right, you called me, and we met up with the artist. We met up with the art director,
Yeah.
not the art director, the location manager from Disney.
Yeah.
And we took him all on the beach. We said, "What else do you need?" And he was like anxious. To
Was it
find-
Adam McCarthy on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
And we were walking on the beach. What else do you need? What else do you need? We took a bunch of pictures. We sent them all to him. He ended up doing not only the beach, the bowling alley,
Yes.
the interior, exterior,
Yes.
and a bunch of road shots.
Yes. Yes.
And any more.
We did Dan in Real Life right after Underdog. That was right after
right
Underdog.
after, and so there was already
Boy,
that's the relationship. That was a Disney
that
film
was
as
a
well.
Disney relationship
Right.
that was forged and still goes on to this day in
Right.
spades.
And then that was that was a pleasure to work with them.
Tell us
But
about Dan in Real Life in Paris, though. That's interesting.
Oh, great.
Ah,
Yeah, you remember that.
That was my segue.
Well, so Dan in Real Life. That was the name of it, domestic.
right.
Then the vice president of production for Disney, Jerry Ketchum, calls me up and he says, "Hey, I've got some phenomenal news for you." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Internationally, the movie will not be called Dan in Real Life." I said, "Jerry, what's it going to be called?" "Love at First Sight in Rhode Island."
Wow.
I said, "What?" He said, "Love at First Sight in Rhode Island." So I said, "That's pretty cool."
Yeah.
My friend Kevin, who worked in our building, he has since retired, was in Paris, France. He took a picture. Paris, France. There was a big billboard. Now, this is in the City of Love.
City of
Right.
Love.
City of
It
Light.
said, it said, "Love at First Sight in Rhode Island." In Paris. So here they were promoting Rhode Island as the place to find love.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about Rhode Island. As I've been saying,
Thank you for bringing that
Right.
up.
Hell no.
I've said for years, I'm not from here, but I am of here. My family dates back to the 1600s in Westerly.
Wow.
But I lived in California, I lived in Tennessee, I lived all over the world, and Rhode Island is, to most people, a very exotic place. It's like Mars. Nobody goes to Rhode Island. What state's that in?
Well, can I tell you, when I lived in Los Angeles, and I always proudly,
What years?
I was in Los Angeles from 1983. Oh, no, hold on. Graduated from high school in 81. 82. So summer of 82, I went out to Los Angeles, and I was there for 22 years. Came back here April 2004. So 82 to 2004. Went to UCLA Film School, USC Film School, and then sold my first script to 20th Century Fox before I graduated film school.
What was that?
It was a project called UFO Scouts, and it was I had written a script called Run Around Sue. I was writing scripts before that. Like, I wrote a Cheers script, tried to sell that. I didn't sell it, but I got some great notes on it. I always get encouragement on my writing. Then while I was in film school, I wrote a script called Run Around Sue about a boy who had to absolutely positively get his date home by midnight or his father would be fired from
Sure.
his job.
Like a Buddy Holly song.
Yeah, Run Around Sue. So
Wake
Run
up,
Around
little
Sue caught the eye of every single studio. So suddenly I had an agent at Creative Artist Agency, which was the big agency, and I was given meetings all over the Los Angeles at every studio, Disney, 20th Century Fox, whatever, Universal, and Warner Brothers. And then I was actually pitched from 20th Century Fox a project that was their idea called UFO Scouts, which in a way was Men in Black before Men in Black.
Cool.
And so I wrote that, and it paid my student loans off before I graduated.
That's important.
It was,
Yes.
it was pretty neat.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then they put me in the Writers Guild, and then after that I sold a project called Fortress at 20th Century Fox, and that ended up getting made in Australia. And then we did a sequel with Columbia TriStar, and I sold another project called Abominable that Jean-Claude Van Damme came into town to meet with me, and I wrote it in 15 days. And
So you still doing this? You still writing scripts?
excuse me, I actually am. I'm finishing up a film I'm going to make that is an action adventure.
Are you going to direct it?
Yes.
Good for you. When's the last time you did that?
Well, I directed a documentary a couple of years ago called Pell, about Claiborne Pell and the Pell
Great.
Grants.
Great.
And we won.
He's like a Mount Rushmore guy.
Yeah, and we won quite a few awards. I won in L.A. Film Festival, in New York, and Rhode Island International Film Festival, and we showed it at Congress. And it's a film that we now have given to all of the schools and libraries in Rhode Island gratis. It's about an hour long, and it's something I'm very proud of about where Pell really wanted people to have dignity. And that's something important in education and dignity. So that's
where the Pell
my
Grants
Lincoln.
came from.
That's my Lincoln. And
No, that's a great subject.
it is.
Absolutely.
Well, there's quite a battle that took place, and that was all about how Senator Pell and some other senators and House of Representatives conspired to overthrow a woman named Mrs. Green, who was the chairman on the House side, and he ended up making sure that his idea was that every student, regardless of their economic status, would have an opportunity to get a higher education,
Yep.
and that the pocket of money was in their hands, not in the hands of the university or college who would be picking. The students would have the money, and they would pick the college or university of their choice. So that was a very big
Legacy
argument.
thing. Yeah.
Argument. So this other project that I have now is a very I'm passionate about. I'm not going to talk about it,
course.
but it's got action, adventure, comedy, and a lot of heart.
Well, let me throw my hat in for art director if you need
All right.
Redwood period pieces.
But did I answer your question about Dan in real life? I don't know if I did. But
You did, because it was how much you can expand just by helping the people out and giving them ideas and sending them lots of good photographs like you
Right.
brought up, and then getting people working, getting those
Right.
businesses started. I mean, because that's what you do.
well, that's the other thing.
That's the other thing that you do.
You know, one of the highlights was too is like Wes Anderson.
Sure.
Wes Anderson, Moonrise Kingdom, and
There's a poster for that in this room. Was that in Rhode Island?
oh yeah, we shot that entirely in Rhode Island.
I love that movie.
Yes.
I love his work. It's so surreal in the literal sense of the word.
When I met him, I said I met him, and I said one of my favorite films of all time is still the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yep.
So I said to him, I said, anybody that could come up with the character of Pagoda is a friend of mine. And he said, give me a hug. He was so nice, and whenever I would come on the set, he always took a moment. And then when the film opened up the Cannes Film Festival, they invited me to join them. And I had never been. I always wanted to
Good for you.
dream that, and to actually go to the opening of the film festival, and the film showed to the entire world, the state of Rhode Island. Wes has said that his two favorite places to make movies were Paris and Rhode Island. And he said that in the USA Today.
Wow.
And then another person who said
I would
the same,
agree.
Yeah.
I would, and
He loves filming in Europe, and he's never filmed in L.A. except for his first movie, Bottle Rockets. Or something.
I don't know if that was there, but then Woody Allen said the same thing. Woody Allen, is a unique person, and he said the same thing, that Paris and Rhode Island, and his producing partner Helen's really good, and everyone, the crew members, locally crew, I'll ask them. I go, "What's the film that you enjoyed working on the most?" And I hear Irrational Man, the Woody Allen film. I say, "Why?" Because they paid us really well.
Yeah.
And they worked decent hours, and they were very respectful.
Robert Downey Jr. said he was offered a part in a Woody Allen movie. He does a movie every year and been doing that since like 1965. And I just saw an interview show where he was talking about it, and he said, "Yeah, I was just there a couple of days, and I realized that's not for me. Those guys are speed skaters."
That's funny. That's funny.
No, but everybody, I guess there's a whole lot of preparation before it's boots on the ground, where everybody understands exactly what they're going to be doing, and here's the sequence, and boom.
Woody was actually interesting because when he did not have many of his shots planned out, and I don't know if it's because he's older now or what. I found that it was in his writing was the important thing.
Certainly.
Then he would let his cinematographer do some of the planning, and sometimes they would go on the set and scout it out, but then do it. Woody wasn't that concerned about where the camera was that much.
Nope.
And what I found that he loved was watching the actors act, and that's when he would get gleeful. He asked me, actually, it was a Friday, I got a phone call Friday night, and it was in August. We had already been shooting quite a bit, and I got a phone call saying, "Steve, what are you doing tomorrow?" from one of the production people. I said, "I'm going to go Saturday. I'm going to ride my horse. That's my thing. That's my getaway." I said, "Oh, well, Woody was wondering if you would join him on a cruise from East Greenwich to Newport tomorrow." I said, "Well, how many people are going to be on the boat?" Like, "Oh, there'll be like 8 of us." But he wanted to know if you would join him. I'm like, okay.
You struggled with that one, I'm sure.
I really wanted a little time out, but I did it. And we got to talk about comedies because I'm a big film and TV history.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's a guy who done your show of shows with, Neil Simon, Mel Brooks.
Right. That whole writing crew.
Yeah, top-notch guys.
Sid Caesar.
And Carl Reiner. And then he had done, working with Peter Sellers, who I'm a big fan of.
Me too.
And then he had done all of his films in the 70s, and you keep going on. It's like he's the one guy that is film history comedy.
Yeah.
So we talked quite a bit about film history and comedy, and I guess that's why he asked me to come on the boat. But it was very interesting, and I've had
that's an interview I would kill for.
Yeah,
I love his movies to death, and I don't care about his personal life one bit. His art is amazing.
Yep. And the other guy, I have to say, before we part, one of the coolest people I ever met while I've been doing this, who I'm always still in touch with, is Mark Ruffalo. Mark, we did a film called Infinitely Polar Bear. That Maya Forbes and Wally Wolodarski, and it was Zoe Saldana and Mark. And Mark, talk about a great guy. Not only is he a great guy on the set, but I told him, I said, "Mark, you leave such a nice footprint behind."
Right.
Like, he could go to a Starbucks and he might leave a $50 bill as a tip for something, whatever. He might. Whatever it is, he's such a good guy and thoughtful and cares about our planet. And like I said, we're still very much in touch, but really superb human being.
Fabulous actor.
Fabulous.
What's the movie he did with the HIV movie?
Angels in America?
No, it was after that.
It wasn't.
I
know you.
I actually knew the guy that he portrayed from when I lived in
I
San
forgot.
Francisco. But anyway, that was one of the great performances I've ever seen. That was
Yeah.
really good stuff.
Yeah, he's just thoughtful. Like right now, he's doing a film about pollution. Like he's an attorney fighting against the pollution, and
Aaron Brockovich kind of thing.
yeah, and he's just like, and he cares about water. He cares about our Mother Nature, and sometimes, we text back and forth if we're watching a similar program, and we'll text back and forth. He's a real guy. He's the real deal.
Listen, we've taken up like half your day here. I really appreciate the time, and we'll double back one of these days.
Thank you, and you guys, we want to make sure that people understand that Rhode Island works. There are opportunities for them. If you're a student and you want to, we have a Give Me 5 program for high school students across the state.
Right.
We have there's camps, there's colleges and universities, there's internship programs.
Tell you something, you want to, I would encourage you, not just because I live there, but there is, I wouldn't call it a renaissance, but there is a movement afoot in Westerly.
Yes.
Performance art has become front and center. We've got a school superintendent he's a gigging musician, and we've got folks from 2 different theater companies working with the kids in the high school right now. And I think there is an abundance of potential there for you to just kind of tuck away in your pocket.
More in Westerly.
We have to do more. And by the way, you've got Watch Hill over there.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's a whole movie to be had right down there. A special movie in my brain that
I'll tell you something, and then we really will bring this to a close. My son and I did a genealogy project a few years ago, and we were able to trace back to the mid-1600s, where a guy named Robert Burdick and Tobias Saunders and John Clark purchased from Chief Ninigret a tract of land called Misquamicut.
Yes.
And the story, I got unbelievably dense. My grandmother was an amateur genealogist way before it was hip, but such a story that is.
Yeah,
Such a story that is.
Let me tell you, there's so many great stories. I was just earlier today, I had a 2-hour meeting with these folks that are doing a documentary for PBS, a story about something very Rhode Island centric. You guys will hear about it. I can't
Of course.
divulge it now. But there are so many great Rhode Island stories.
Historical stories.
Yes. Yeah, right.
Aldrich.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a movie.
All right.
I have a file. I'm not gonna. There's a
Ready to
file.
burst.
See,
I have a file.
and
I have
now
a
I know-
file that's this thick
Sure.
about what you just mentioned.
I know where you live.
I just want to say it's a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for
Thank you,
coming,
Stephen.
and we love Rhode Island. We're Team Rhode Island, and we want to see more movies. We want to see more people getting opportunities and living the dream.
America's greatest backlot.
Smallest state, greatest backlot.
Stephen Feinberg, Wayne Holmes,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Great talking to you. Thanks for having
Thank you
us.
very much.
Thank you, Mark.
Done.
Thank you, guys.
So let's just turn this off.
Wow. This is awesome.
Was that? I had a
was
great time.
awesome.
It's really See, I'm from Westerly, Rhode Island,
Yes.
which means I know nothing about anything north of Westerly, Rhode Island in the state of Rhode Island. It's the
Isn't that funny?
same state, different planet.